life's terms. And one of the things we all agree about is we want happiness. You all said you wanted more rather than less. And then I said, so what is happiness? And we had a variety of explanations, and they were all feel-good things. Epicurus, our first ethicist, says that might mislead us, and we might miss out on happiness if we don't understand the true nature of happiness. So the first one we're going to study is Epicurus. He is a Greek. There are other views as well that claim our lives is good to the extent we get what we want. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. What's the pursuit of happiness? In our system, it's what you make of life. You are technically, legally free to do as you want, as long as your elbows don't stick me in the nose. You can do whatever you want to. That's the whole point of freedom. We'll get into that when we get into political philosophy later on in the semester. For a while, we were not free to do what we wanted to. We belonged to the king, queen, Caesar, pharaoh, emperor, and dictator. They could literally take our heads off, no questions asked. Now suddenly we have freedom to do anything we want as long as we stay within the boundaries of the social contract. No lying, no stealing, no cheating, no raping, no robbing, red light, green light. Stay within the boundaries, don't put your hairy toe over the line, you can do whatever you want. You want to be an executive, be one. You want to be a nurse, be one. You want to be a philosopher, well, forget that one. You can be whatever you want to be. Another account offers a variety of intrinsic goods rather than just one, like honor. Some people choose to live an honorable life, regardless of the consequences. Code and duty, virtue, caring, benevolence, and altruism. Doing things for other people because that just makes you feel good. Extending yourself for the welfare of somebody else without necessarily a benefit for yourself, other than a feel-good feeling. You did the right thing. I had a friend was really poor. His business in northern Michigan wasn't working out right well. He was a computer specialist. We sat down by the town we're at, they have this kind of bay, we call it Little Traverse Bay, and we were there one night just kind of talking, and he got done talking next to a big parking lot. His car's here, and another car is way over there next to the FOE. As we walked to his car, there's a $50 bill on the floor, on the pavement. He reaches down, he picks it up. This guy's got no cash in his pocket. He can't pay all his bills, and he finds a $50 bill. He says, what do you think I should do? Now, if you came out of Publix and there was a $50 bill, you go right back in and give it to the people at the service desk in case someone comes back for it. There's no one around. Chris says, what should I do with this? And I said, well, you don't have nothing to your name right now, do you? And he says, no, I'm dirt poor. So, well, I suppose finders, keepers, losers, weepers, you found it. The only other car is down there. You could go down the car, put it under the windshield, and say, if this belongs to you, I'm glad I gave it back. We should return things that don't belong to us, right? Sort of. I said, you know anyone else who's dirt poor? Of course you do. You hang out with like kinds. I said, why don't you do them a favor and take them out to dinner. Go out and enjoy a good meal for a change. Do something for someone else. You get a benefit, they get a benefit, everybody's happy. You all get an A for the semester, right? Then everybody happy. That's altruism. Let's focus on Epicurus. There are questions that are central to value theory. What makes a human life go well? What in life is worth pursuing? And is happiness the ultimate good? We're going to discuss hedonism today. Hedonism is merely the theory that says that what's important in life is pleasure. That we feel good about the things that we do or the things that happen to us. There's also desire satisfaction theories. Our lives go well to the extent that our desires are satisfied. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And objective theories, how well one's life is going depends on more than one's mental state. Sometimes it involves people and situations around us. No man is an island to himself. We're all interconnected. How someone else responds to things might influence our happiness. My special needs boy asked when spring break was. I told him when it was. His mother said she could get him to Grand Rapids so he could fly down. We're going to go see the Tigers play. We're going to go to Orlando and see Cirque du Soleil. So I bought tickets for him on an airplane. And a week later, his mother sent me a little note and said, oops. My phone died, and I thought I had all my calendar imported, and it turns out I'm busy between the 12th and the 10th. I hope that doesn't... Well, it did. It required that I get different plane tickets. Now, the good news is I got them on Southwest, so I ended up saving $109 because I put them on a Monday instead of a Friday coming down here. But it did disturb my happiness for a little bit. And when I sent back the note saying, does this work for you? And her response was, I hope so. And I thought, that's not a user-friendly response. So I've lost 3 days with my boy. I only see him once a year, and maybe I'm going to lose a few more. Objective theories, how well one life is going, is not always dependent just on you. There are other circumstances that affect life and how we deal with life. So the first one we're going to study is Epicurus. Now, he starts his argument incorrectly. I can't emphasize this enough. How many of you go to the 4-year school? And then grad school and post-grad? It's important when you read things to examine them and challenge them. Even things that I say to you people. I was reflecting one day in my intro class, and I was talking to my students how Einstein was wrong. We don't live in a static universe. It's going to go out, find this limit, and come back again. Boom, big bang, over and over. It's proved that the universe is moving faster and faster and faster apart. There seems to be no break on the system, which means, and I said in class, 1,000,000 years from now, we won't be here, but let's say we could be here. We'd look up in the sky, and there'd be no stars. There won't be a moon. The moon, by the way, is moving away 3 centimeters a year. Sooner or later, it'll escape our gravitational pull, and Jupiter will become the lord of our universe, and we'll go from 27-degree tilt to 90, and you don't want to be around when that happens. It will upset the whole ecology of the planet. It'll normalize, but it won't be what we expected. So I said to them, 1,000,000 years from now, you look up in the sky and there will be nothing. Well, 2 days later, we were in class again, and one of them said, you really meant to say 1 billion years, right? Not 1,000,000. I said, yeah, what did I say? And they said, you said 1,000,000. I said, well, I should have said 1 billion. I said, how'd you know that? Well, we went to Professor McCann's class. He's up on Spring Hill. He teaches earth science. And we said to him, you know, Professor Pollard said 1,000,000 years. And Mr. McCann said, well, he probably meant 1 billion years from now. Even I mistake some things or misspeak some things. It's important that you sit down and examine stuff, especially if you're moving on to the 4-year graduate school, postgraduate, doctoral work. It is important that you sit down and question things. So we're going to start with Epicurus. He's got this example of why we shouldn't be afraid of death, and his thinking is erroneous. And I want to point that out to you, and then we'll get into the real substance of what he thinks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is his reasoning. Something can benefit or harm an individual only if the individual has the capacity for physical sensation. The dead do not have the capacity for sensation, therefore death cannot harm the dead. If some future event will not harm us when it happens, and we should not fear it now, therefore we should not fear death now. Well, you sit down and listen to that, it sounds logical, but what's wrong with it? Well, what if we do have physical sensations after life? Does anybody know? He's assuming that he knows something, and in fact there's no proof for it. Maybe we don't have physical sensations, but we may well have physical sensations. I don't know what form we might take when we leave this body, when we expire. There are religious thoughts throughout all religions that you do go somewhere. There is something after that, whether it's nirvana, whether it's Brahman, whether it's heaven, there's all these theories about it. He makes the assumption that when you leave this life, there's no sensation, there's nothing to worry about. The dead do not have the capacity for sensation. Again, he offers us no proof. We don't know, people. You can't make broad assumptions without proving them. What about the possibilities of eternal judgment? If you're in my intro class, we'll talk about Atman Brahman and going back to the universal consciousness. People believe it, whether it's true or not. By the way, there's no proof, but it's a contrary theory of life. Some future event will not harm us when it happens. We should not fear it now. It's just an assumption that he's making, and he may well be right. The point is, it's okay to challenge thinking at any level. It's very important, especially as you move on to higher education. It's how we correct thinking. Newton was right. We live in a 3-dimensional world, up and down, front and back, side by side. The only problem is he's wrong. We live in a 4-dimensional world. Einstein said that you forgot to add time. Time is the glue that holds space together, and he draws a picture of a fabric. Everybody applauded Einstein. The only problem is Einstein wasn't right either. Theodor Kaluza, another German mathematician, did the math and said the math says there's 10 physical dimensions, and yes, we're glued together by time. Well, where are they? Why can't I see them? Well, maybe you're not hardwired to see them. If you're in my intro class, I bring in pictures from Hubble's telescope. Wow. We don't see that with the natural eye. We're not hardwired to it. So we invent the Hubble telescope. It sees the red and the blue shift. It sees gamma rays and X-rays. You ever see a shadow go by you? Oh, that was weird. Oh, that's just a figment of your imagination. Really. Do you ever hear voices? I don't mean like psychotic. I mean like voices, you know. I hear voices all the time. I have a blue aura. Did I ever share that in class? I have a blue aura. You have a blue aura. Children see auras right away. It's just energy force. Did you forget your energy? You're nothing but energy. And it happens to be consolidated into physical mass waiting for. Look, this is physical, but if I torch this, it turns into energy. Some really bright scientists now are exploring the fact that everything is just energy. And this is energy in waiting. It just happens to be in physical form. I don't want to go too deep in that, but what I'm saying is, you know, we make these assumptions, presumptions, we all believe is true, and someone comes along and says, got you there. That's not necessarily true. And then they give us some reason to disbelieve what we've believed. Professor Ninsalako and I were just talking about the flat earthers, you know, the people who believe the world is flat. And the math evidently works. It's just not true. Well, the math says it's true. Theodore Kaluza says the math says that there's 10 physical dimensions. And so when we read these things, especially in philosophy, it's important that we break it down and try and figure out what's really being said to me. Should I believe it or not? Just because some mucky muck says it's true doesn't make it true. I should at least have the integrity to examine the truth for what it is. Philosophy is two words, philosophia, the search for or the love of wisdom, and wisdom begins with knowledge. So people, I wasn't planning on doing this, but I'll do this now. You're in school, at least to gain knowledge. This is your database. I know people who are smart and don't know how to put things together. They really don't understand very much, but they have all the facts. And once I have understanding, here comes philosophy. This is where wisdom kicks in. So I'm in the same situation twice, exactly the same. And wisdom one day says I do this, and wisdom another day says I do that. This is what you're learning about in philosophy. To take information, to examine it, see how it pars out, see if it has validity for us or not, see if we need to make adjustments to it. That's the quest that we're involved in. So Epicurus begins his argument, I think, with a very what we call a fallacious or false argument. But that doesn't mean his thinking is wrong. Epicurus goes on to say, in pursuit of the good life or happiness, he says, pleasure is the freedom from pain and fear. How many of you want more pain? How many of you want more fear? See, there are a select few. There are people who are sadomasochists. I don't understand. They're hardwired a little differently than us, but no one raised their hand. Most of us want more pleasure and more freedom from fear. Epicurus says the pleasant life is not always about physical pleasure, even though that's at a premium. Not indulging in fancy food, drinking, and revelry or sex, produced by sober reasoning, searching out the grounds for every choice and avoidance, and banishing those beliefs to which the greatest tumults take possession of the soul. Now, what does he mean by that? He says pleasure is important, but pleasure may not be the highlight of what the good life is. So it's August 10th, 1996, and I'm about to go on a vacation to Chicago. Now, I married a lady from northern Michigan. Anyone from Michigan, at least, knows where northern Michigan is? Up by the Mackinac Bridge. Now, if you're born up there, it just seems to be this general assumption we make that people who are born up there love to go camping. Camping for people in northern Michigan means you take the kitchen and you put it in a minivan and you drive the minivan out in the woods and you take the kitchen out and you do what you would do, and then you load up the kitchen and you go back to the house and you unload the kitchen and so